All right, so action scripts can be extremely handy. Let's make sure my audio, hello, is that working? Hello, check, check. Um, they can be extremely handy just when you want to repeat something. That's the whole deal. So I'm going to open up my horseback rider person. They're Dutch, obviously. And I am going to, in order to kind of show what we want to do, we need to make our canvas much larger. So because we're going to just create a shadow. Go image, canvas size. Let's change the corner by which well, let's just keep it in the center, I guess, by which the canvas is going to expand. But let's change it. I'm going to change it by percent. Let's just change it by 300%. We're making big. Oh, just went those two ways. Image canvas size. I thought that was going to be all overall. Got to do the other way. 300%. Okay, there we go. They weren't locked. So I need to turn my auto select on because that's just the way I am, and show transform controls. Alrighty. Next up, we need to find our action scripts. The program does not open them immediately, so go to your window, and you'll see it. It's alphabetical order. After 3D is actions. It comes up with a number of default ones, and it's pretty easy to test the defaults. We could go vignette. So I'm going to select a layer and then go to the vignette one, and all you do is, these buttons are, the first one is stop, record, play, create a new set, and then a new action. So hit play. The command feather is not currently available. I don't know why feather isn't available. That's weird. So what it did is it went through a process of different things. I would think so. Let's try frame channel. Let's see if that one works. Nah. Maybe these are all bad. Duplicate selection. I bet that one works. Duplicate is not currently available. Okay. Okay, maybe they need to update some things in their action scripts. Well, hopefully we can still create a new one. So we are going to create this shadow action script. The way action scripts work is that they just record what you're doing. Okay, and so out of the gates, we need to select a layer, because in this one, if the first thing you did was select this layer, then every single time this action script started, it would start by selecting this layer. So that'll make more sense in just a second, but select your layer, make sure it's active, and say new action, call it shadow, and then hit enter. And immediately, so you say new by hitting this new one, and then you'll see this little red arrow popped up. And if you go down, kind of scroll down, you can see that shadow is starting to work. We're going to right click on our layer and say duplicate layer. In this case, I'm going to name it shadow. Say OK. Next up, we are going to change the hue saturation. So I believe that's Control U is the hotkey to get to that one. And change the lightness all the way to black. Say OK. Now if you look over here at your action script, it's recording everything you're doing. If I toggle down that hue saturation, it's going to show me that it just changed all these settings. All right, next up, I haven't clicked anywhere else, because if you clicked somewhere else, it would record that. I'm going to hold Control to get my little toggle window guy. I'm sure there's a more technical name for that. And I'm going to put him down here. I'm going to keep holding Control. I'm going to move the feet to try to hit the feet of that horse, and just essentially set up a shadow. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to hit Edit, Transform, Warp. I'm going to, well, it's still active. I didn't hit enter or anything. I'm using the warp command to just kind of tweak it a little bit more. Hit enter. And then I'm going to go straight to my opacity and change my opacity down to, I don't know, whatever fits your fancy. I'm going to go with 47%. Now, keep in mind, when I was moving those, it recorded it every single time. So I toggled down to 50%, it recorded 50%. And then I toggled up to 67%, it recorded that. Not a big deal. It's fine. So I'm going to hit enter to set that. And let's call that good. Hit stop. And there is our shadow action script. So now if I duplicate this horse, no, let's actually get another Skaggleber. Let's get an umbrella lady.
So you stopped it?
Yeah, you have to hit stop. And then stopped. Let's get this Skaggleber lady. And I'm going to pull her into my file. I just grabbed her and dropped her on there. I'm going to enter to place her. And now, with her selected, now keep in mind, anytime you do it the way I just did it, what do we have? Anybody tell me? A smart object, correct. I mean, I'm going to rasterize her. We can see, actually, I think the action script will probably work on a smart object, but let's just check, why not? I'm going to go down to, I need to toggle these things up so I can see a little bit better. Now, in order to enact my script, I'm going to select shadow. I need to have her selected, and then just hit play. My hue saturation, for some reason, I don't know why. Are you guys having those issues? Yours worked? Okay. So it went through all the motions and created that shadow just as we might have expected. The only thing it didn't do was it gave me a notification that my hue saturation didn't work. I don't know why, but as you can see, she hasn't been turned fully black yet. And so that's why.
So when I did mine, I redid the things that I did for the original image and moved like the shadow. Like so I'm making it like what's the file.
So that is an issue, by all means. So this is not a perfect science. It follows the XYZ sort of coordinates of where you end up putting things. So if one person is at a different scale than the next person, oftentimes the shadows will end up not hitting the base of their feet perfectly. You will have to move them over. But you can see how, very quickly, you can start to create a bunch of different shadows at the exact same angles all over the place. Put this guy in here. Let's rasterize him. Maybe that'll save my hue saturation. Yeah. Okay. So maybe it didn't use the hue saturation because it was a smart object. Not a perfect science. One thing I could have added to this. So you can add anything, right? So can anybody think of a smart way that we could make sure that the shadow doesn't kind of land on the feet? What's that?
Move the main layer.
What's that? Move the main layer?
Yeah.
In front of it, right?
Yeah.
Trick with that is that then we would be selecting that layer. So the action script would record, I'm always going to select Skaggleber 290 and walking. And then it would always move that layer. So if you're trying to use a different one, it wouldn't work, which is kind of funny. Has anybody ever found a way to duplicate a layer and make it go behind the layer? You know, when you duplicate a layer, it always puts it right in front of the layer you just duplicated. I never have, so maybe if somebody did know, that would be great. But there would be a way by creating a layer mask. Okay, so let's try that. I've never done this before, but it just popped in my head. So let's give it a shot. New action script. I'm going to call this Shadow Perfect. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually duplicate the layer. Okay. And now I'm going to hold Control and click my layer, which makes a selection of that layer, right? I'm going to add a layer mask. And then I'm going to right click and can I invert a layer mask? In a perfect world, we could invert our layer mask. disable layer mask, invert layer mask. I've never done that before. Delete layer mask, apply layer mask, intersect with selection. Well, I'm going to hit G, and let's see if we paint bucket. I'm going to hit X to get black, paint black, and then I'm going to go Shift Control I to invert and paint white. So I inverted the layer mask, so now anything there wouldn't show up. I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. I'm going to unlink these two things. That's very important because now we've got a black layer mask right on top of this spot right here. And now we're going to warp it. Oh shucks, now we have to select the layer. Yeah, so now we would lose it because we have to select the lady and move her. And then Control U and change the opacity. Anyway, it's almost perfect, but not quite, and hit stop. So what I did is I went through a process to create a layer mask for this shadow that blocked out the feet. But the big problem is going to be that I had to reselect her in order to make it work. So it won't work quite perfect. Like as you can see, I will show you if we select our horse person and try to do the shadow perfect. Yeah, see, it didn't work because it went through a process and it selected that other layer. Anyway, nevertheless, use it to your own power. There's lots of different ways to use these things. If you ever have to batch, save something, like you got a bunch of files, you want to save it out, this is a good place to do it. Another thing, it's not an action script that's quite handy, is under scripts. If you have a bunch of layer comps, if you're using layer comps, you can always export those layer comps to a PDF. It's kind of a handy way to just say, okay, I've got 9 layer comps. I just want to create a quick PDF with all those things. You can batch export those. Automate, well, that's where you do photo merging and things like that. So. All right, and then last but not least, let's create, I'm going to create does everybody know how to do a lens flare? Do people use lens flares? You can go online and figure out how to do it. It's not too bad, not too hard, but use a mask, generally speaking, is what I recommend to feather it. Okay, I'll skip that one, but grab me if you have any questions. Let's take a 10-minute break.